Hello! So, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to make a video about, so I guess I'll just ramble about anything I feel like, and we'll start off with my mental health lore. Very exciting stuff. So, I have ADHD and autism, and having those two diagnoses kind of hindered me in having my personality disorder recognised. I suppose in adolescence symptoms can appear quite similar, so where I should have been getting assessed and treated for a personality disorder, I just had doctors telling me that I'm autistic and that's all that it is. When I was a teenager, I even spent 7 months in a residential mental health unit and basically came out even worse than I was when I went in. Obviously, if you go to a doctor and you start telling them what's wrong with you, they don't appreciate that. They really don't take too fondly of people who Google diagnose themselves, but the symptoms were there, all of them, and I knew it in my giblets, okay, that I had a personality disorder. And I only actually got my diagnosis in 2018 when I went to prison. I was assessed by a court psychiatrist for court purposes in relation to my conviction, and that's where they diagnosed me. I actually remember it being quite funny. The guy was like, "I think you've got BPD," and I was like, "Really? Really? And what what makes you think that?" I've struggled with socializing and emotional regulation, maintaining relationships, all of this basically my whole life, and I'm 25 years old now and I still struggle just the same. It's easier, but it's only easier because I've learned how to cope with it. The actual symptoms themselves have not diminished, they've not slowed down, and I guess that's one of the things that kind of irritates me a lot, because when I was younger and I was being denied treatment for this disorder, doctors would say things like, "I'm not old enough to be recognised to have a personality disorder," or "people grow out with these things," or "it's a phase." But yeah, it still is to this day something that I struggle with greatly. The only reason that I'm employed and that I have anything to call my own in this world is because I've found a job where I can work from the comfort of my own home as and when I want to, and it's so adaptable. If I wouldn't have found this blessing, I would still be in that council flat, I would still be on benefits. Actually, before finding this job, I didn't think I would be anything. I didn't have any hopes for myself. I knew I wouldn't be able to get a job. I knew I wouldn't be able to function in the real world. I didn't think I would ever be able to have a stable relationship. I remember when I phoned up the benefits office to tell them that I didn't need that money anymore, and just feeling so smug and proud of myself, like I did it! Granted, I didn't do as well as I probably could have. One of the biggest issues that I have with my mental health is my inability to stop myself making impulsive decisions. So actually managing money and being responsible with money has always been really hard for me. It's only just now at 25 years old that I'm starting to realise that I should be saving the money that I earn and not just spending it on like any random shit that makes me feel good at that minute. If you thought that it's impossible to spend £20,000 on Uber Eats in a year, you are wrong. And that's really depressing. I guess in the beginning, when I started this job, it was a lot easier to make money for less effort. The market wasn't as saturated and it was quite easy. I was working like all day most days just like I am now, but it was so easy to just climb to the top 1% and stay there for a good while. I guess I was just so excited to finally have earned some of my own money, and I spent it. I spent most of it. Yeah. In fact, the only reason that I even have a house today is because I saved up 20 grand for tax, because I thought that you had to pay all of your tax at once. So I saved up 20 grand thinking that if I didn't, I would go back to prison. And then when I was told that I could actually pay the tax in installments, I thought, oh god, what should I do with this 20 grand? And I made the one and only responsible decision that I've ever made in my entire life, and I put down a deposit on this house and I got my mortgage. So this is my one and only asset in the world. I'm sitting in it right now talking to you. It's not all mine yet, but it will be when I'm 31. But yeah, as I was saying, in the beginning, I just spent all of my money. I was just so excited. I'd never seen that much money before. It was able to be cashed out every 12 hours, so every time it ran out, you could just cash out more. I have always struggled to keep friends, and a big part of my disorder is this overwhelming fear and paranoia that people secretly hate me, they're lying to me. Up until actually quite recently, for especially the first few years that I was earning this money, I spent most of it on other people. I thought that I could make my family relationships better by throwing money at people. I thought that if I paid for the booze and I paid for the party, that I would have more friends, and I did. I had a bunch of friends, and they loved sticking around and having all that money spent on them. And yeah, the rest of it just went on stupid, disposable happiness. It's been so unreasonably hard trying to get any help or support for my mental health. In my entire life, it's been so unreasonably hard. I know that we're really lucky in the UK to have free healthcare. I think that free healthcare should be universal. I do take for granted the fact that if I needed an ambulance right now, I could just phone one at no cost to myself, and that is something that really, you know, is taken for granted by people in Britain, because not everybody around the world can say that. Some people would go bankrupt phoning themselves an ambulance. A winky dink. A lot of doctors don't like working with patients who have BPD. They don't think that we can be helped. They think we are manipulative. They just don't want to help us, and you can blatantly see that in the way that healthcare professionals treat us. I know that a lot of people have bad experiences with the mental health system in the UK, especially the crisis team, which is absolutely dog shit. I've been laughed at down the phone by the crisis team, and when I've told doctors that I think I've got BPD, they're like, oh yeah, do you? And why exactly do you think that? Oh yes, and why exactly is that? And the phrase, what do you want me to do about it? I have heard way too many times. Way too many times for it to even be real. So at a certain point in my mental health journey, it was probably a year out of prison, probably 2019 to 2020, around the same time that I got this job and I started finally working to be independent in my life. I finally accepted that nobody was going to help me and that I had to do it by myself. So I bought books and I started reading and I started looking things up, which is actually really, really emotionally difficult if you've got BPD, because when you look up BPD, you'll get your standard doctor definitions and your like medical sources just giving symptoms, etc. But you'll also get the friends and family and exes of those with BPD who think that we are evil incarnate, and being that age, being that young girl reading such hateful things towards people with my disorder, I know that my mental health has caused me to act not so good in the past, but the sheer hate of it all, just so hard. But yeah, I am nowhere near better yet, but I treat the people around me better, I feel, or I try to at least. And I try to recognise where I've gone wrong, and I try to get better every single day. A lot of it is just being able to recognise my symptoms and being able to recognise when I'm being delusional, and using those coping mechanisms that I've got in place to actually try and fight some of the faults. My disorder is characterised in black and white thinking. I actually have a tattoo. I have a tattoo of the borderline brain. This is the white side and this is the black side. Black and white, positive, negative. Basically, a BPD is a personality disorder, and when I tell people that, they're like, ooh, like that guy from Split. Oh, you're gonna go crazy like Patricia.
He's not well.
But no, borderline personality disorder is not the same thing as split personality disorder. I don't have multiple people living in my head. I'm just one mentally ill fuck. The thing that splits is my perspective on the world. So the way that I see things completely changes. There's no way that I can describe to you how it feels or how the experience is in the brain for someone who doesn't have this disorder. I can't describe it accurately, but it's like you can either have your best day or you can have your worst day. There's no in between. Either I hate you or I love you. Either this job sucks and I hate it and I hate this house and I want to leave this house and I'm gonna go live on a tent on the side of the road, or this is the best house ever, I had the best life ever, I love you, blah blah blah. So a lot of getting better has been recognizing that black and white thinking and recognizing that split in perspective when it happens and being able to be conscious of the fact that it's happening, because being conscious that it's happening is important, because then you don't act out on other people when it's not necessary, when things might not be so true in your head, they might be delusional. And the way I do this is with pros and cons usually. So if I'm in that split mood, everything's just shit, I try to force myself to remember what this is and that this is temporary, this too shall pass. And I try to force my brain to think of some positives, and I can actually bring myself out of it now a lot easier than I could when I was younger. If you would have told younger me that I was able to do that with the power of my own brain, I wouldn't have believed you. I am very, very lucky to have a partner who listens and understands and doesn't judge and tries to do everything in his power just to make my life a little bit easier. Being with somebody with this disorder, I imagine, is very, very draining. Just having to deal with those quick mood switches that you don't know what's going to set it off. I never want people to feel like they have to walk on eggshells around me. I don't want people to be scared of me. That's not something that I ever wanted. But it always just seems like this inevitable thing that happens. Because I can explain BPD to you till the cows come home. I can tell you about the symptoms. I can tell you to expect a split, and I can tell you that I might not be in such a nice positive mood and I might say mean things when I'm like that, and it still won't prepare you for when it gets bad. And when it's got bad, there's always something worse that you've not seen yet. And I just didn't think I'd ever be able to hold down a relationship. It's been 2 years now, so maybe I'll be watching this in a year or two's time and he'll be gone and all of this will be bullshit. But I truly do believe that there's somebody out there for everybody, even if you struggle with mental health, even if you're difficult, there's somebody who thinks that difficult is worth it for you. Depending on which source you're looking at, there's around 7 to 9 symptoms of BPD. You need 5 at a relatively severe level to be diagnosed, and I have all of them and some, plus the extras. This part might be a bit triggering, so just go ahead and skip it if you need to, but I needed to say this somewhere. I just want everybody to know that my scars that are on my body, I don't even notice that they're there until somebody else mentions them. Like, I literally don't even notice that they're there. They just completely go past my mind. It's in the past, they're years old, healed, and I just don't think about it anymore. I'm not in a place mentally where I really would ever feel the need to do that to myself again over anything. And so when people think that they're being kind and helpful by messaging me and bringing up my scars, they're actually not being helpful. They're actually reminding me of them and hindering my progress. I've had some pretty fucked up messages about my scars. People seem to think that it's like a bonding point, like they can message me and be like, oh, I do that too, let's be friends. Even to the point where people have sent me like pictures of theirs, and it's just, oh, it's absolutely insane. I don't want to talk about that with people that I don't know on the internet, and I'm sorry, but I just don't. And maybe that shit that the teachers used to tell me about how they were going to be on my body forever, and they'd be on my body on my wedding day, and I'd regret it when I was older. Maybe that's true for some people, but not for me. I obviously don't like that they're there. I don't think that they're pretty. I'm not going to like try to romanticize the fact that they're there, but they're just there. They don't disgust me. They don't make me feel bad about my body. They don't make me think any less of myself. They just remind me of how much I used to struggle and how far I've come now. That's the only significance they have to me. They just don't need to be brought up, they just don't. I was put on a medication for some time while I was in prison called quetiapine. This is an antipsychotic. There aren't any medications that are directly to treat BPD, but it's kind of one of those things where it helps one thing a little bit. A lot of medications that doctors prescribe aren't just for that thing, you know, they help with one thing, they help with another, just like how they might prescribe you an antihistamine to help you sleep at night because a side effect of that drug is also that it makes you sleepy, for example. So the antipsychotic is used in that sense as a mood stabilizer, and honestly I felt a lot better when I was taking it. I felt so much better. My rational thoughts were at an all-time low when I was on that medication in prison, and my mood switches and flips weren't gone, but they were definitely a lot less severe. The only issue with this was that I was hungry and I was tired and I was achy. I don't even think I can put into words how hungry and sleepy I was. I would probably be awake for between 2 to 4 hours out of the day, and then I would just be straight back asleep again. It was ruining college for me. When I got out of prison, I was still taking them. It was ruining college for me because I was sleeping through college. It was ruining my social life with my friends because I had friends who were traveling like hours to see me, and then I would just be asleep on the sofa for like 3 days straight. And also I was hungry. Oh my god, I was so hungry. It was crazy. So in prison in the UK, you've got something that's called a canteen. It's basically just like a shop, like a metaphorical shop. You don't go to an actual shop. They put a piece of paper under your door and it's got a list of all the shit you can buy on there, and if you've got enough money, if you're someone who's lucky enough to have had money sent in basically to buy that stuff, then you tick what you want on the Friday, you put it back under the door, and it arrives on the Tuesday. And I was so hungry in prison, oh my god, I don't even know how I didn't die from the amount of food that I ate, because I was straight up phoning up my sister, asking her to Google the capacity of the human stomach before it snaps, because I would eat like a whole bag of sunflower seeds, like seeds, just because I was just craving fat and salt and whole jars of peanut butter. And I don't know, I felt sluggish, I was sleepy, my muscles would ache and spasm, like my muscles would move on their own, and I gained so much weight. I'm someone that's had a lot of issues in the past with my body and struggles with eating. I'm lucky to say that I don't have much issues with how I view myself anymore, and I have a really healthy relationship with food now, and a lot of that is because of my job. So you can't hate yourself if people want to pay to see you because they like how you look. Like, it's so difficult to hate yourself when it just made me feel sexy. And it made me feel better about myself. And I don't see food as a number. I see food as fuel and something to enjoy. I see food as something exciting, as an activity, as fuel that my body needs to live, and that my body is a very important vessel that's here to allow me to have this life and go through this life, and that I need to take care of my body and fuel it. And I know these things, but even now still I do think that if I were to gain so much weight that I didn't recognise myself anymore, I would probably shut down in a lot of other aspects of my life. Please don't hate me for saying this as well, because I'm not trying to say anything like being overweight would be the worst thing in the world, because being overweight is not the worst thing you can be in the world. The worst thing you can be in the world is an asshole, okay? It's got nothing to do with the way you look on the outside. But just for me, I feel that when I had to choose between being this sleepy, hungry, achy resemblance of myself and being someone who struggles more with my mental health, I chose to stop taking the medication, and that's just my choice. I couldn't cope with the way my body was changing. I didn't feel like myself anymore. Felt like aspects of my personality had been taken away by the medication. I guess we can go into the prison story in more detail another day. I did write up a whole script for a video talking about prison because I really wanted to make sure that I worded it correctly I wanted to make sure that it didn't appear that I was saying that any of it was cool or that I thought I was bad man for going to prison or anything. Just kind of share my story. So I wrote out a whole script and it took me like 3 fucking hours, and then my computer crashed and deleted it all, and I haven't tried to remake it since. But if anybody's really that curious, I will write it again and I'll save it this time. And I guess if we're going into full mental health law, we should probably go into addiction law. Addiction and substance use is something that I've struggled with ever since I was old enough to take substances, pretty much. I've gone through phases of all sorts of different substances. I was even addicted to spice or legal highs at one point, and I completely lost about 6 months of my memory when I first moved out because I was on spice. And I woke up in the hospital one day and decided to never take it again. But yeah, that drug is fucking awful. Spice is evil. It's an evil fucking drug, and I can't even describe to you how fucking addictive it is or why. I can't remember ever having a fun experience or even barely remembering an experience on that drug. Yet still, every single time I awoke from that zombie-like state, you know, the one that you see people in on the street where they're like dangling down, that's what it is. That's a spice high. And waking up out of that and immediately just thinking, where's the rest? Where's the rest? I need to get more. I don't even know, it's insane, but it took that big hospital scare to finally get me to stop taking it altogether. I've always enjoyed smoking weed. It's like one of the least harmful things that I've ever done. I did try to get medical weed because that is a thing in the UK. For certain conditions and stuff, you can get a card and you can actually get medical cannabis in the UK, but every single time I'm going to be denied for that service because I have a personality disorder. Because I have BPD, the risk of me developing psychosis or similar psychotic issues in the future due to heavy cannabis use is a lot higher than for people without BPD. So no sane doctor is going to give me that prescription. Probably the worst running with drugs that I ever had was with coke. If I could go back in time and slap that bag out of my hand the first time I ever tried that, I would, because that is one evil fucking drug I'd never tried, I wish I'd never heard of, especially combined with drinking, which I've always had an issue with too. It just really took a hold. It took a hold of me so fast before I even knew what was happening. I just wanted more and more, and I would do anything to get more. I lied to people, I stole, I did things that I'm not proud of just to get a stupid white powder that made my heart beat a little bit faster. And it was awful, it was stupid. I think that the scariest thing about coke was that the addiction took over my sense of being able to reason and think properly. It was like the same horrific cycle over and over again. Hundreds of pounds just for a night that seemed to be really exciting and full of chat and everybody loved me and yada yada yada, only to get the come down. And other people who have taken coke have not described it to be anywhere near as extreme as I have described it, but the come down on coke is the saddest, most depressed, most angry, horrible mood I've ever been in my life. Just sadness that drags your heart down into your stomach and just makes you feel like you can't even move and you don't even know what to do with yourself anymore. And it happened every single time, like a cycle. Every single time. Let's get a bag. Oh, everything's great. Oh, everything's awful. I want to die. I can't do this again. I'm never going to do this again. And then to just do it again the next day. And then every single time you relapse, because of the amount of times that you know you've said you're not going to do it in the past, every single time you relapse, it just feels worse and worse. You're just so disappointed in yourself. Like, why did I do this to myself again? Why do I keep doing this? Why am I not smart enough to do better? Anyways, aside from 2 small blips in the past 2 years, I have been fully clean of any coke, so haha. And I also recognised that alcohol was my main trigger for that, so the first step to wanting to get some coke or wanting to get another stimulant or any other kind of similar drug is being drunk and kind of having your inhibitions lowered by the alcohol, which is why I stopped drinking too. So I also haven't drank alcohol in a long time. I've got to say that I don't think that I would have quit any of those more harmful substances without weed. I kind of used weed as a coping mechanism for when I wanted other stuff. I would just smoke a load of weed, get really, really high. And I do enjoy smoking. I really enjoy smoking. If I could be stoned for every waking second of my life and it was free and didn't have any consequences, I totally would do it. But yeah, about a week ago, I quit that too. So I don't drink, I don't smoke weed, I don't do no partying, I don't do nothing exciting. I had to stop smoking because I was spending way too much money on it. When it gets to the point where you're spending all of your disposable income on something that's just supposed to make you feel better but not actually saving for the future, I'd much rather save that money and put it towards moving somewhere really peaceful and nice. Because I know I'm lucky to have this house, but I don't like being here. I don't think this is my forever home. It doesn't really feel like mine, and I'm wanting to build up to get that forever home, you know? And the only way I'm gonna do that is if I stop spending hundreds and hundreds of pounds every month on weed, you know? So I stopped that too. And now that I've stopped, I might be having a bit of an epiphany that the weed actually wasn't making me happy. It was just making me too stoned to realise what was going on, because even just a week after now, I have so much more energy. I'm so much happier. I'm just really glad I made the decision to do that. I still vape. I'm always gonna vape, I feel, because I need something to do with my hands, and I do enjoy, like, smoking, you know, the action of it. Oh, and not to mention, my lungs are so clear. Listen. Not a wheezing sight, baby. Because when I was smoking weed every day, I literally couldn't even walk up the stairs without gasping for breath. But yeah, that was a little bit of my mental health lore. You know, I still struggle to this day with things. I try not to get too close with subscribers even, because a lot of this emotional dysregulation and these struggles socializing, they come out in my work when I'm not meaning to. Like, I'm very quick to anger. I snap on people, and it's not fair and it's not professional. And I also have had a shit ton of struggles with trying to, like, work and interact with other creators in this industry as well. Like I said, I just find it so hard to maintain any kind of relationship with anybody when I'm just so paranoid. I'm just so in my head about everything. I had this fantasy a while ago about, like, having my own little clown cult for real, like a house or a boat or some land or something where a whole bunch of people could live, and we could just, like, basically like a clown bop house, but, like, less disrespectful, you know, and no teenagers. That's weird, dude. Or even just, like, not to do with work, but just having, like, a big group of friends, like a big community of people around, you know, to talk to and just enjoy doing things with. And I had something like that for a little while, and I fucked that up. So I'm just hoping things will get better in the future. But yeah, that was a ramble, some random mental health lore. I think I'm boring as fuck, but apparently people like listening to me talk endlessly about random shit. If you have any questions or topics that you think are way too personal, trust me, they're not, because it's me. So just let me know if there's anything else you want me to go into more detail about. And as I said, prison lore probably coming soon too.